Hello and welcome to Future Shorts. I'm Rom Gayoso from Futures Television, joined by world-class futurist Joyce Joya. How are you doing today, Joyce?
Great to be with you again, Rom.
How wonderful to see you. And folks, now firsthand, you get a preview of what will be released later on today in the Herman Trend Alert. The alert goes out every week, and you can find it on www.hermangroup.com. There's a link to that page on the comment section of this video. So Joyce, today the topic is neuroplasticity. What is that?
Well, uh, neuroplasticity or brain plasticity is the brain's ability to adapt and change in reaction to internal and external stimuli. Our brains can change their functions and even their physical structure to react to all kinds of inputs, whether it's events or human emotions or thoughts or even experiences. Until recently, Ram, scientists believe the brain was finite. That meant that the billions of neurons that you were born with would not regenerate. They also assumed that the brain cells would die off over time since they didn't regenerate and we would lose function and die too. But now we know that our brains can evolve by reorganizing neural pathways, making new connections, and even regenerating the, the neurons to be more effective and giving our cells more neural pathways.
Well, this
We
is kind of fantastic. So, how did you discover that?
You know, I had heard the term, but I really didn't know a lot about it. A couple of weeks ago now, I attended the Enterprise Agility World Conference and I learned about neuroplasticity. I had heard the term, but I wanted to know more about it. And I started reading. And when I did, I was really fascinated because one of the things that we need to work on as we age is to make sure that we have a high level of neuroplasticity so that we can keep being effective in whatever jobs we want.
Wonderful. So let's start digging deeper through neuroplasticity, right? So, actually, who discovered neuroplasticity?
In 1948, there was a Polish scientist named Jerzy Konowski,
Oh, okay.
Konorski. And he first used this term neuroplasticity to describe the physical changes that he observed in the brain structure as a result of like PTSD or even a learning experience. Many years later, additional studies reflected the fact that stress on the brain could change its physical structure as well as its processes and functions. So I'm really tuned into the fact that the more that I use my brain, the the more neurons I'll build up and the better I can be at all of my jobs.
Wonderful. So I did read the Herman Trend Alert. Nobody else did, but I did because I got it firsthand. You guys are gonna
Yes.
see it soon enough. So in the Herman Trend Alert, you explained that there are two types of neuroplasticity. Can you explain that?
Yes, of course. So research tells us that there's functional neuroplasticity and structural neuroplasticity. So in functional plasticity, the brain moves its processes and other functions from perhaps a damaged area to other areas that haven't been affected by trauma. We see that sometimes in people who were unable to speak or unable to raise their arms or whatever. And as a result of working and rehabilitation, they're able to change the area of the brain that's controlling particular types of movement. Now, in structural plasticity, That typically changes following a learning event. We see the brain's capacity to change and reshape itself, reshape its actual physical structure even. Uh, our brains can even use neuroplasticity to establish good habits and not
Mhm.
so good habits. I have personally found that sticking to routines helps me to establish those good habits and to build greater neuroplasticity in my brain.
Wonderful. So I understand correctly, there are three factors affecting neuroplasticity. What are they?
Well, the first two are pretty obvious. They're age and environment. Now, since most changes occur in our early stages of life, I mean, think about babies, how fast they learn. They're learning so much, they're like little sponges, right? When our brains are still developing and even growing, it's not surprising that we're able to add those neural pathways and to learn a lot, because the the brain and the entire organism is more able to do so due to the youth of our genes and our cells, and it's just the way that the human organism works. However, fortunately, we don't have to be babies. We can rewire our brains at any point in our lives. Now, that's two: age and environment. And environment does make a difference, and physical environment makes a difference, as well as emotional environment. When we are constantly told that we can't do something, that we're worthless and all that, it has an effect on us as human beings in terms of our ability to learn and grow and develop. At the same time, if we're given the reassuring kinds of environments, then it really helps us to grow and be all we can be. Now, the third factor is, sadly, genetic predisposition. In other words, part of the outcome of an individual's ability to have this neuroplasticity depends on the genes that we inherit. Plus, as the brain is growing, it also interacts with the environment, and the genes that we are born with are pretty much the baseline. However, we know that the more that we work on our brains, the more that we use our brains for good and for positive areas of our lives, the better that our level of neuroplasticity will be. But the good news is that although we inherit this baseline, this genetic constitution, most of us can move beyond our given DNA to what's called contour our brains and rewire those new pathways.
So you explain about the environment. So that's something we can control. So perhaps we don't have so much of a say of what the environment is putting out there, but we have a say on what we put out there, right? So, and you mentioned like positive thoughts, good habits. So maybe there is some part of this neuroplasticity that we can control, right? And so if we focus on that part, I think we have a shot.
For sure. And by the way, one of the people that we're going to be interviewing on it's it's Your Future with Joyce Joya, our TV show together,
Mhm.
is a guy named Neil Young. And Neil has this concept called the incantations, and he's constantly affirming positive things in his life. And I just had a conversation with him the other morning, and I said, the thing that I like most about your incantations and your affirmations is that when you are slamming the subconscious with positive things, there's no room for the monkey mind. There's no room for all that negativity. And that's why being positive can really make a difference in your ability to have this neuroplasticity.
And I think the environment is challenging enough. I think we have to put our energies into the, I mean, and I'm not being Pollyannish by any stretch of imagination. So we shouldn't be putting energy into the negativity. We have to put energy into the positive, because if we don't do that, who else will, right? We have to take care of
Right.
ourselves.
For sure, for sure.
Now, so let's think a little bit about the people who are listening to us. How can they put that into practice? So, can you give us a few tips and tricks? What can we do to foster positive thinking? And I know you're big on empathy, but could you give us a few ideas?
Sure, sure. What what we can do, which can make the biggest difference in terms of our environment, is that we can be sensitive to the needs of others, and it, that that word empathy really can come into play here. Uh, there's a whole segment of the population that's more sensitive, and those folks who are more emotionally fragile, we need to deal with them in different ways. We need to have that higher level of sensitivity to where they're coming from. And when we do that, whether we're a leader or just trying to get along in an organization, that can make a tremendous difference, because there are some people who will just take any idle comment that we make and jump to conclusions that it's criticism of them. And we did not mean it as criticism of them, but that's how they take it in. We need to be especially careful of people like that. And when we work with people like that, to make sure that they understand that we are talking about what is best for them and best for the organization, and that we're there to support them, not to tear them down.
I
And
think that's a good piece of advice.
yes, and in all of our relationships, Experience Rules. That's my new book, Experience Rules. This is the, oops, I can't get that. Sorry.
Well, we'll soon talk about it.
Yes, we will. We will.
So, well, before
Uh,
we go, there's actually a mobile app that you can help people to have better brain plasticity. So, what is that
yeah.
called?
Yeah. It's the Ngomu mobile coaching platform. And it's available on both Android and iPhone. And the cool thing is that it can really help, because there are mindfulness coaches there. There are coaches who can help people with chronic pain, all kinds of different coaches. And by the way, I'm one of the coaches, but
I didn't
uh,
know that.
my
I,
coaching
I found something new about you.
my coaching community is called Experience Rules for Leaders. So I talk about what leaders can do to support the growth of their direct reports. But this coaching app is not just for leaders. This coaching app is for
Everyone.
everybody. And the wide variety of coaches is really terrific.
I will put a link to that on the description of this video as well. So, well, the Be More Days of Ingom is coming up. Are you going to be there?
I am, and in fact, I'm participating in Be More Days, and I'm probably it's going to be midnight in Dubai, and that's where I'm expecting to be.
Are you going to lead a round table?
I'm not sure whether I'm leading it or participating, but I'm definitely going to be involved.
Oh,
And
that's
I know that you're going to be covering it on Futures Television, correct?
I certainly will. Even more so now that I know that you're there. Now we have more stuff to talk about.
Thank you so much, Ram. You're such a great partner. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Joyce. And folks, we're just scratching the surface. The Herman Trend Alert is coming out pretty soon, so watch out. www.hermangroup.com. Again, you'll find the link in the description of this video. And again, folks, this is basically your future shorts when we can talk trends, and more in just a few minutes. Thank you so very much, and I see you next week.